Hi all, welcome back to software engineering course. Let's get started. Today we'll get started with the fourth chapter, that is design, and here is your marks split up for that. Okay, so in this chapter we are gonna study design concepts, which has coupling, cohesion, and the open closed principle, then function oriented design, object oriented design, then detailed design, and the last one is verification. So this is the contents of the chapter. So we'll get started with the basic things here, the design concept. So first thing, what is a design? So we say design is a blueprint or a plan for a solution of the system. Again, do not confuse this with the architecture. The architecture is different and the design is different. Architecture is high level design, okay? And your design is the in depth of that particular architecture. So we say design is a blueprint or a plan for a solution for the system. Now when does this design activity begins? So whenever we have the SRS in place as well as the architecture in place, then the design activity starts. So for starting, the input for this design activity is your software requirement specification or the SRS document and your architecture. Fine. Now what do we do in design? So in design, we refine the architecture. So architecture, we have the high level diagrams, right? High level things we know. So in design, we refine that particular architecture, whatever we have developed. Okay. Now, the two levels of design process are high level design or module design, and the second one is detailed design or logic design. Okay. So now what is a module design? So, at the first level, the focus is on deciding which modules are needed in the system. So, whenever we want to develop the design from the architecture, the first thing which comes to our mind is what are the modules in the system, right? The specifications of those modules and how these modules should be interconnected. So, now this, whatever thing we discussed now, like deciding the which modules are needed in the system, specifications of these modules, and how the modules should be interconnected. Now, this particular thing we call it as module design or high level design. We decide these many things here. Okay. In the second level, that is detailed design or logic design, what will happen is the internal design of the modules or how the specifications of the modules can be satisfied is decided. Okay. Now the first one, module design, it deals with identification of the module. Detailed design, the second part or the second process, the second level, it says the internal design of that particular modules which we have identified in the module design would be done. Here, detailed design, it essentially expands the system design to contain a more detailed description of the processing logic and data structure so that the design is sufficiently complete for coding. Getting it? Then we have a term called as design methodology. Now, what is it? So, this design methodology is a process or a systematic approach for creating a design by applying a set of techniques and guidelines. I'll repeat it again. The design methodology is a process or a systematic approach which creates a design by applying a set of techniques and guidelines. Most design methodologies, it focuses on the module design, but it do not reduce the design activity to a sequence of steps that can be blindly followed by the designer. So this is a design methodology. So the we say that design of the system is correct, right? So how do we judge if it is a correct design is correct? So the design of the system is correct if the system built is according to the design and it satisfies the requirements of that particular system or the project. The goal during this design phase is to produce correct designs. But there could be n number of correct designs, right? So we have to choose a particular design which is within the limitations imposed by the requirements. Now we'll study the goal of the designing. Now, goal of this designing phase is not simply to produce the system of the design of the system, but to find the best possible design within the limitation imposed by the requirements and the physical and social environment in which the system will operate. So, as we had said, like we can have n number of correct designs, but we have to choose a design such that it is under the limitation, right? It contains all the limitations and it is having all the things which is represented by your requirements and physical and social environment, right? In which the system will operate. So, to evaluate a design, we have to have some evaluation criteria. So the properties, we say that the design should be clearly verifiable, complete and traceable. There are important properties of this design. So the important ones are efficiency and simplicity. Apart from that, modularity is also a property. Now we'll see what is efficiency, simplicity and modularity in par with the design. So the efficiency of the system, it is concerned with the proper use of scarce resources by the system. That means you have a resource crunch or you have a limited resource, and by using that limited resource, how efficiently you are building your system. So that is nothing but the efficiency. Next is simplicity. Okay, so simplicity. Your design should be as simple as possible. So you cannot have a cluster of requirements or a number of requirements put together in a or different modules put together in a design. So if I see a design, I should be very clear with it. It should be simple and easy to grasp, right? So it is a quality criteria for the software system. Now the last one is modularity. So your modularity helps in system debugging because you cannot have a system just by chopping the system into n number of modules. Okay, you cannot just chop the system into different modules and you cannot say like you have achieved the modularity. So how you should divide the system into modules? So for to have the modularity, each module needs to support a well-defined abstraction and it should have a clear interface through which it can interact with the other modules. To produce modular design, some criteria must be used to select the modules so that the modules have well supported abstractions and they can be solvable and modifiable separately. So the important criteria in the modularization is coupling and cohesion, and these are used often together. Okay. The other criteria is open closed principle. So your coupling and cohesion are the two modularization criteria which are often used together. We will also discuss about the open closed principle, which is another criteria for modularity. First we'll define what is coupling, the types of coupling, these things. Okay. Then we'll follow with the cohesion and open closed principle. First one is coupling, right? So two modules are considered independent if one can function completely without the presence of the other. So obviously if two modules are independent, they are solvable and modifiable separately, right? So however, all the modules in the system cannot be independent of each other. They must interact so that they produce the desired external behavior of the system. They produce some output in the system. The more the connections between the modules, the more dependent they are, in the sense that more knowledge about one module is required to understand or solve the other module. So, the fewer and simpler the connections between the modules, it is easier to understand without understanding the second module, right? So, the definition of coupling goes something like this. Coupling between the modules is the strength of interconnections between the modules or a measure of interdependence among the modules. Now your coupling occurs whenever we have minimum of two modules and the strength of interconnection between them, right? So we say that if we have more connections or the strength between the modules, we say they are more dependent on each other. If the connections are fewer and simpler, we say it is easier to understand a module without knowing the other module. So we'll consider two modules A and B. Okay, we'll consider we have two modules A and B. So in general, we say that the more we must know about module A to understand the module B, the more closely A is connected to B. That means if you want to understand the module B, first you should have a complete knowledge of module A. Okay. Now, the highly coupled modules are joined by strong interconnections. So, if you consider A and B are highly coupled, how these will be interconnected is with the strong interconnections, while loosely coupled modules have weak connection between them. So, independent modules, that means there is no interconnection at all. Okay. Now, to solve and modify a module separately, we would like the module to be loosely coupled with the other modules. So whenever we want to solve a particular module, say we want to solve this A module separately, that means we would consider or we would like this module A to be loosely coupled with other modules, like it is loosely coupled with B, C, D, whatever it is. Okay. Now the choice of the modules, it decides the coupling between the modules, because the modules of this software system are created during the system design. The coupling between the modules is largely decided during the system design and cannot be reduced during the implementation. Now we will discuss the factors affecting the coupling. The factors, there are three factors, okay? Interface complexity, type of connection, and type of communication. Okay, first we'll discuss about the type of connection. So we say that coupling increases with complexity and obscurity of the interface between the modules. Obscurity, it is nothing but unknown things. Okay, so to keep the coupling low, we would like to minimize the number of interfaces per module and the complexity of each interface. So, an interface of the module is used to pass information between the modules. From one module to another module, you can pass information through these interfaces. Now, we say coupling is reduced if only the defined interface of the module is used by other modules. For example, passing information to and from a module exclusively through parameters. Again, coupling would increase or higher if a module is used by other modules via indirect interfaces like using internal elements of the module or using shared variables. The next factor affecting the coupling is your complexity of the interface. The more complex the more complex is your interface, the higher will be the degree of coupling. For example, complexity of the entire interface of the procedure, it depends on the number of items being passed as parameters and on the complexity of some items. Some level of complexity of the interfaces is required to support the communication needed between the modules. So often more than this minimum is used. For example, if a field of a record is needed by some function or procedure, often the entire record is passed rather than just passing that particular field of the record. Now, by passing the record, we are increasing the coupling unnecessarily. So, we should keep the interface of a module as simple as and as small as possible. The last factor affecting the coupling is type of communication. The type of information flow along the interfaces is the type of communication. Okay, there are two kinds of information that can flow along the interface. The one is data, another one is control. Passing or receiving control information means that the action of the module will depend on this control information, which makes it more difficult to understand the module and provide its abstraction. Transfer of data information means that a module passes as some input some data to another module and gets in return some data as output. Now this allows a module to be treated as simple input output function that performs some transformation in input data on the input data to produce some output data. In general, interfaces with only this data communication, it results in a lowest degree of coupling, followed by the interfaces that only transfer control data. So coupling is considered highest if the data is hybrid. That means it is the data items and the control items are passed in between modules, then we say it is hybrid type of communication. Okay. Next we'll see the types of coupling. So there are three types of coupling in object-oriented system and that exist between the modules. Those are interaction coupling, component coupling, and inheritance coupling. Okay. So now we'll discuss each one of these. The first one is interaction coupling. So interaction coupling occurs due to the methods of a class invoking methods of another class. So we all know that the coupling occurs between two modules, right? Two modules, or you can take two classes here, interaction coupling. Okay. So we say that this interaction coupling occurs when, say, suppose you have a class A and we have class B. So interaction coupling occurs between this class A and class B whenever the method, say suppose this has a method, okay, that is a function, it invokes the methods of another class or classes, right? Now the least coupling situation is therefore when the communication is with the parameters only, with the necessary variables being passed and these parameters only pass the data. So interaction coupling, what will happen? The first thing is there could be the interaction between two or more modules such that a method or the function of one class, it would invoke the method or the function of another class or other classes, and we say that it is least when the communication happens through the parameters and only where your variables are being passed instead of the controls. Okay. The next one is component coupling. So we say that coupling is very high if methods of the class interact with methods of another class by directly manipulating the variables or objects of that particular class. So again we'll consider class A and class B. Okay. Now we say that this component coupling is high when, say suppose if class A method it interacts, okay, class A method it interacts with class B method by directly. So this method of class A, it will directly manipulate or update the instance or the variables of class B or the objects of class B. So this component coupling, it refers to the interaction between two classes where a class has a variable of other class. Okay, the interaction between the coupling, it refers to the situation wherein a class it has a object or variable of another class, something like this. A has a variable ab and this variable is of class b, then we say that component coupling has occurred, there is an interaction between them. So this is just one example wherein they have said a class C can be component coupled with the other class C1 if C has an instance variable of type C1 or C has a method whose parameter is of type C1 or if C has a method which has a local variable of type C1. So I have given you an example of two classes A and B. So here they have taken the class names as C and C1. Okay. Next, the last one is inheritance coupling. So it occurs due to the inheritance relationship between the classes. So we all know what is an inheritance relationship, right? So we say that two classes are inheritance coupled if one class is a direct or indirect subclass of another. So if I take this example, so you must be knowing this one, right? We have a parent class and these two are child classes, child 1 and child 2. So these childs they inherit something from this properties from this parent class. So this we call it as an inheritance relationship. So we say that two classes, okay, we say suppose this is one class and this is another class, these are inheritance coupled if this class is direct or indirect subclass of the another class. So here C1 is a subclass of P. Okay. Now the least coupling scenario in this inheritance coupling occurs when a subclass only adds instance variables and method, but they do not modify anything from this inherited ones. Okay, so these are the three types of coupling, right? Next, we have a quiz. What are the types of coupling? You have got a minute to respond to it. Okay, time's up. Next, we will study about cohesion. Okay, now in coupling, what had happened? We had two modules and we decided the strength between those two modules. Now, this cohesion it occurs within a module. Okay, remember coupling occurs between modules and cohesion occurs within a module. So, the definition of cohesion is cohesion of a module. It represents how tightly bound the internal elements of the module are to one another. That means we have a module and now we will only focus on that particular module. We will not consider any other modules. Okay. Here we will just focus on a single module and we will check how tightly the bond is between the internal elements of that particular module, like the attributes or the methods. Okay. Now usually, if we have the cohesion, greater the cohesion of each module, that is strongly they are the attributes of the module are bounded, then we say that the coupling between the module is less. If cohesion is greater, then coupling would be lower. Okay. Now we will see the levels of cohesions. There are 7 levels of cohesions. So the first one is coincidental, and this is the lowest level. Coincidental cohesion is the lowest level. The functional, that is the seventh one, it is the highest one. So we will check these 7 levels of cohesions one by one. Okay. First is the coincidental. So as we have already seen, it is the lowest level. So this cohesion it occurs, coincidental cohesion it occurs when there is no meaningful relationship between the elements of a module. So you have a module, you have some variables in it, methods in it, but they do not have a meaningful relationship. So might be you have declared some 10 variables and it is not used. So then you can say that it is a coincidental cohesion. Okay. Now so coincidental cohesion it can also occur whenever you try to modularize by chopping a module into different pieces. Even that time your coincidental cohesion can occur. So you have a meaningful module, you chop it into different modules so that the module the meaning or the relationship between the elements is lost. Another example could be whenever you have a meaningful module with you, you want to copy the code from that and you want to save a duplicate of that. You want to copy the existing code into some other module, and this module you for this module new module duplicate module you added some contents and it is placed in n number of places. Even then we say that we have a coincidental module. The basic idea here is in a module, there is no meaningful relationship between the elements. Okay. The second one is logical. So we say that the module has a logical cohesion if there is some logic relationship between the elements of a module and the elements perform the function that fall in the same logical class. right? The example of this would be the module that performs all the inputs or all the outputs. It doesn't perform any other functions. A module, you have a module, it is only concerned with the input items, or you have a module that is only concerned with the output. So there is no combination of input and output. Okay, so this will be done by passing some kind of special status flags which will be used to determine what statements to execute in a module. So when we have all the inputs, what to execute, or you have a module with all the outputs, then what to execute. So there is some logical relationship between the elements of the module. Then we say that it is a logical cohesion. Next is temporal cohesion. Now this is same as your logical cohesion, but the elements are related in time and they are executed together. So for example, you have a module which cleans up the memory, or which we have a module called as initialization module or termination module. So these in this module, what will happen? You have some elements, right? And these elements are related such that they will be executed at runtime, or they will be related in time and executed all together. So at that time we say we have a temporal cohesion. So even though the elements in a temporarily bound module are logically related, the cohesion is higher in temporal compared to that of logical. Because in temporal what will happen? The elements would be executed together. Input, output, everything would be executed together. But in logical that doesn't happen. The next one is procedural cohesion. So the best example for this would be a loop or a sequence of decision statements in a model. So whenever that is executed, a set of statements would be, executed. So there is we say that a module, it has a procedural cohesive that contains the elements that belong to same procedural unit. You have a function or you have a unit, and the statements are all together executed when that condition becomes true or something. Okay. The next one is communicational cohesion. So a module with a communicational cohesion has elements that are related by a reference to the same input or output data. That is, in a communicationally bound module, the elements are together because they operate on the same input or same output data. Now, this communicational cohesion, it says like all your input, you have a module, okay, you have a module and it operates on the same input or same output. So for example, you have print and punch. So this print and punch module, what it will do is it takes records some input data and it prints. Now the punch function also module, what it does, it takes the same input which you have given to the print function, it takes the same and it punches it. So we say that there is a communicational cohesion whenever the elements are related by reference to the same input or output data. The next one is sequential. Okay, so this is similar to your problem structure. That means the output of one module would be given to the input of another. That means whenever the elements are together in a module, because the output of one, it forms the input of another module. Okay, so it is similar to your. So then last one is functional. So the functional cohesion is the highest or the strongest cohesion. For example, if you consider a module wherein you calculate the Fibonacci series or factorial sorting of the array. So we say that these type of functions are the functional cohesions. That means the elements in these modules, they define a single goal. They accomplish a single goal, right? So this type of modules we call they have functional cohesion. So we had seen all these levels of cohesion and all right. So how does one determine the cohesion level of a module? So how can we say that there is sequential module among the sequential cohesion in a module or something like that, right? So there is no any formula to judge this one. You have to use your judgment for this one. So a useful technique for determining if a module has a functional cohesion or not is to write the sentence that describes that function fully and accurately. Modules with functional cohesion can always be described by simple sentences. If you cannot describe it using simple sentence, then we will consider that it is not a functional cohesion. Next, we will see the three types of cohesion in object-oriented systems. So they are method cohesion, class cohesion, and inheritance cohesion. So in method cohesion, what will happen is, so it is same as your functional cohesion. Okay, the highest form of cohesion is if each method implements a clearly defined function. So in the functional cohesion, we had seen the elements of a module this will accomplish a goal, but here what will happen in a method cohesion is the method it implements a defined function. All the statements in the method contribute to the implementing of this function. Okay, so we are talking about method here. In function, what will happen? The elements, all the attributes, it corresponds to achieving some goal. Okay, next is class cohesion. Here it occurs, this class cohesion, it focuses on why different attributes and methods are together in a class. For example, if you have a class called as car and you have attributes something like car color, car model, car engine, and some different methods, right? So the work of this class cohesion is to determine why these different attributes and methods are in a class. So the goal is to have a class that implements a single concept or abstraction with all the elements. The last one is inheritance cohesion. So this focuses on why the classes are in a hierarchy, right? The two main reasons for inheritance are to model generalization specialization relationship and for code reuse. So we consider the cohesion is high if the hierarchy supports generalization specialization of some concept. We consider it is lower if the hierarchy is primarily for sharing of the code with a weak conceptual relationship between the superclass and the subclass. Getting it? So there are 7 levels in the cohesion and these 3 are the cohesion in object-oriented systems. Okay? That's it for today. We'll conclude our session. Thank you.